like I was reading about it and you mentioned it off camera about like knowing. But then part of me thinks that, and we were talking about trauma, and what I was reading was that from a biological and DNA standpoint, when a kid is removed from their biological parents, there's an immediate trauma that comes into
the body knows.
The body knows straight away.
100%.
But then part of me thinks, cool, you know, it makes sense to tell the child, okay, this is the situation. But wouldn't part of that be curbed when a child is told way older, like 18 plus, when they've been able to establish their identity to be like, yo, listen,
that would hurt. This
is the reality of the situation.
Yeah.
That's like your whole life's been a lie, basically.
That's it.
What it is this is why I was saying that you have to be honest, because especially about them being adopted as well. And you actually, if you've adopted one child and you haven't told them, they won't let you adopt another.
Okay.
Because what you don't want is a Jerry Springer moment.
Do they ask the child, has your parents told you?
So when you go through the adoption process, if you have any birth children or adopted children, they'll speak to them.
Okay.
And the thing is, you don't want a Jerry Springer moment, because if they can't trust you with such a fundamental thing, how can they believe the reasons why they were even removed? And then they start to doubt everything. So it's
and then it becomes an existential crisis.
And can I just make one more point? You were saying about identity, and you were talking about earlier about like race and ethnicity. That's one of the things why it's not a law or like a thing that's written down, but one of the reasons why it's so important to match children by and it's not just even ethnic background, it's by, like, you wouldn't want a Scottish child who lives in Scotland maybe being adopted by a Welsh couple. And it's not
why,
because all things being equal, if we have a Welsh couple and we have a Scottish couple, then it's better for that child to be adopted in Scotland by a Scottish couple, because that's their identity. If all things aren't being equal, then we just have to have whoever's available to adopt the child. But if we have a mixed race child, because
that I see more than the example. Sorry to cut you, because, for example, if a Nigerian couple adopts a fully Jamaican child, as far as the child would be aware, they can assimilate into the Nigerian identity as a Jamaican, but
depends how old the child is. And
I'm just talking about let's say 9 months old, you can just assimilate, and that's what you would think that you would be. But if you're completely like, I don't know, like the odd Dalmatian, then it's more of a difficult.
But I've got I knew someone who was Asian and adopted an Asian child, and it is and it isn't, because the child she adopted was Sikh. She's not Sikh, she's Muslim. So then we get into language. Well, the child was being... See, this is where it gets, like you say, it gets squirrely, because it depends where the child was fostered, because that comes into it as well. So, for example, if you are an Eastern European child and you've been fostered by Black Caribbean...
Yeah, that makes sense for me, but Sikh and, let's say, Sikh and Hindus, same country, similar language, completely different religion. But if you were to assimilate that, it's almost like feral children. If you're raised from such a young age with a pack of wolves, you will believe that you're a wolf and you wouldn't really know any different,
I do agree with you, but I think it's where like language and things like that come in, and what you're after when you match a child and adoptive parents is the best possible match. So we don't want the placement to break down, and the best way we can mitigate those circumstances is matching the child as closely as with the type of adoptive parents as they would have come from.
I get that at a later age, but language and culture aren't hereditary. Whereas I'm talking about the physical differences. You can see I'm not like these guys, but if you were taken from a young age, and I use the black example as a Jamaican child, and you were taken to Niger and you were raised in the culture, you would just think that you would not know any different.
I totally agree with you that on a sort of purely racial basis when they're smaller, but obviously most children aren't adopted when they're babies.
Fair enough. Yeah.
So that's the issue, because most children who come into care aren't relinquished; they're removed, and that doesn't often happen until a much later stage. because things don't often go. I mean, there are cases where things go wrong from the off, but most of the babies that get removed from birth, they've had previous children removed at a later stage. Do you see what I mean? I mean, so that's why they're removing the baby. So the average age of a child coming into care is, well, being adopted is 3. But the average age of a child going into care is quite old.
Oh, really? Why is...
Because what happens is the abuse is hidden when they're preschool. So they're at home. So who is seeing what's going on? Unless it comes to the attention of a health visitor or maybe a doctor or, just a nosy neighbour. But most of the abuse comes to light when they start school. So that's why you'll see an exponential increase, an uptick in children being removed once they start primary school, because then the school starts to notice. That's why during the pandemic, people were like so alarmed that children were being sent home, because for some children, that was their only safe place.
Escape, yeah.
People noticing that they weren't being fed or that they weren't clean. So...